I never imagined my marriage could end over something so small. Not cheating, not money, not another person, but a secret I kept because I was afraid of my own husband. I'm 32 years old, and my husband is 36. We've been together for 6 years, 4 years dating, 2 years married. This is his second marriage. When we met, he was already divorced. I'm religious, and I always dream of a church wedding. He had one with his first wife, but because he never finalized an annulment, we couldn't have one. He promised he would take care of it. He never did. I told myself love mattered more than ceremony. Still, it quietly hurt. Once we got married, the fighting started. At first, I thought it was normal, newlyweds adjusting. But the arguments never stopped. If I cooked and the meal wasn't perfect, he'd criticize me, saying it was embarrassing that I hadn't learned by my age. Then he'd go silent. Days, sometimes a full week. No affection, no conversation. He believed silence was discipline, and questioning him was disrespect. There were good days, too. Days where we laughed, planned our future, talked about building a house. Those days kept me hopeful, but intimacy became complicated. I tried to communicate gently about connection, about closeness, but it always turned into an argument. He said the problem wasn't him. He said I just needed to want intimacy more. I stopped pushing the topic. I buried my feelings under work, under routines, under silence. A few months into the marriage, I bought something small. Something we had actually talked about before, about trying new things together someday. I bought it as a surprise, but the timing was terrible. We were fighting constantly. I was scared of triggering another explosion, so I didn't say anything. Over time, it became something private, not a replacement, not a secret affair, just a way to cope with feeling disconnected. And honestly, I didn't think it mattered. Everything changed the day he went through my things. He found it. I tried to explain. I told him I loved him, that it wasn't about replacing him, that I was afraid to talk because every difficult conversation turned into punishment. He didn't hear any of that. To him, hiding something meant lying, and lying meant betrayal. He said I had broken his trust, that I had fallen from grace, that this was the same as being unfaithful. After that, the surveillance started. He checked my belongings, asked to unlock my phone, questioned me about small things, like losing one earring from a pair he gave me years ago. When I replaced it with a matching one because I liked them, he said that was another lie. Suddenly, I wasn't his wife. I was a suspect. We tried to move forward, talked again about building a house, pretended things were healing. But every small disagreement exploded. Then one night, he said something that broke me. He told me he didn't want children with me, that he had already told his family and friends. Later, he said he didn't want children at all, that he felt too old. And then he said the wound was permanent, that he would never trust me again. That separation was inevitable. Now we live in the same apartment like strangers. He barely speaks to me, puts pillows between us at night, avoids touching me, avoids looking at me, but he also refuses to leave. I keep asking myself the same question over and over. Did I really do something so unforgivable? Or did I stay too long in a marriage where fear replaced honesty? I've started to realize that trust doesn't die because of one object. It dies when communication is punished, when silence is used as control, when love comes with conditions. Maybe this wasn't about what he found. Maybe it was about power. And maybe walking away doesn't mean I failed. Maybe it means I finally chose myself. Some relationships don't end with screaming or cheating. They end quietly, when you realize you've been shrinking just to keep the peace. I never thought I'd say this out loud, but I'm not attracted to my husband anymore. And what hurts the most is realizing that it didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly after becoming parents. I'm 30 years old. My husband is also 30. We have a child who's almost a year and a half old. Since becoming parents, our marriage has quietly fallen apart. We haven't been intimate in almost 2 years. We live like roommates, bitter ones. We share space, responsibilities, and tension, but not closeness. And I keep asking myself how we got here. One of the hardest things for me to admit is how much his habits affect my attraction to him. He works in a kitchen, so he comes home late, sometimes after 1 a.m., smelling like grease, sweat, and oil. I understand being exhausted. I really do. But when days pass without him showering, that's when it becomes hard to ignore. This isn't new. He's always struggled with depressive periods where personal care falls apart. I've encouraged him to get help. I've tried for years. He refuses. He's also been a heavy smoker and coffee drinker for most of his adult life. And it shows. His teeth, his breath, his overall health. He neglects it all. I hate feeling shallow. I hate even thinking these things. But attraction doesn't survive neglect, especially when it's paired with resentment and emotional distance. I try to approach it gently. I frame it as concern for his health. I explain that rebuilding intimacy isn't just emotional, it's physical too. Nothing changes. There was one morning where things almost felt normal again. We were close, touching. For a moment, I thought maybe we were reconnecting. I suggested waiting until later that night because I didn't feel prepared. His response stopped me cold. He didn't talk about us. He didn't talk about reconnecting. He talked about what he hadn't had in a long time. So I gave in, and afterward, I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel desired. I felt disconnected and honestly gross. That moment made something painfully clear to me. This isn't just about a lack of intimacy. It's about feeling unseen, unheard, and emotionally alone. I've suggested counseling, new approaches, different ways to rebuild what we lost. Most of the time, it turns into an argument, or he dismisses it by saying we've already talked about it. Even when we haven't, I'm tired. I don't want perfection. I want effort. I want partnership. I want to feel like we're both trying. Losing attraction doesn't always come from cruelty or betrayal. Sometimes it comes from years of unmet needs, emotional avoidance, and neglect on both sides. And admitting that doesn't make me heartless. It makes me honest. Sometimes love doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under exhaustion, resentment, and silence. And the hardest part is deciding whether it can still be uncovered or whether it's already too late. I never thought I'd be asking this question, but here I am, trying to figure out how to tell my wife that I don't love her anymore. And the hardest part is realizing it didn't happen suddenly. It happened slowly while I was trying to hold everything together. I'm 32. My wife is also 32. We've been married for 7 years. Almost 3 years ago, we had our daughter. Like most new parents, we struggled at first. Sleepless nights, stress, constant adjustments. I truly believed that once we found our rhythm, things would stabilize. But instead of balancing out, everything started falling on me. Over time, I became the default parent. Night wake-ups? Me. Cooking? Me. Cleaning? Mostly me. Diapers? Me again. I work from home, so I also watched our daughter during the day. At first, when I brought it up, my wife explained it as postpartum. I understood. I was patient. I told myself this phase would pass. But months turned into a year, then 2 years, then almost 3, and nothing changed. Every conversation ended the same way. Postpartum, or denial, or me being told I was complaining because I hated her. I didn't hate her. I was exhausted. What hurt the most wasn't just the workload. It was the lack of effort. Our intimacy disappeared. Affection became something I had to beg for. Household responsibilities were avoided, but going out with friends or running errands somehow always had energy behind it. And then came the moment that changed everything. She was leaving town to visit sick family. I encouraged her to go. I stayed home with our daughter while working. That morning, before she left, she didn't spend time with our child. She sat and watched TV instead. I don't know how else to describe it, but something in me shut down. The person I married felt gone, and not replaced with someone struggling, but with someone disengaged. I know I'm not perfect. I never expected perfection from her either. All I wanted was effort, honesty, partnership, to be imperfect together. But I feel overworked, underappreciated, and emotionally alone in my own marriage. And now I'm facing a truth I never wanted to face. I don't know if she's capable or willing to see herself honestly. And if that's the case, loving her has turned into surviving her. Maybe the most painful honesty isn't admitting I'm unhappy. It's admitting that staying has already cost me the love I once had. Some marriages don't end with betrayal or explosions. They end quietly, when one person carries too much for too long, and eventually there's nothing left to give.